food lovers, season's greetings. We are back with another episode on Chef's Talk. Today we are talking all things sugar with one of our very own ICCA instructors. She has over 2 decades worth of sugar crafting experience, from turning sugar into beautiful masterpieces. An eye for detail like no other. Chef Nasarene Dhanki. Hi Chef, how are you?
Hello, I'm very well, and you?
Good, thank you. So I think before we can get into anything sugar, give us a little insight into your career and how you are here today.
Well, talking about careers, I've changed careers thrice in my life. But this particular one started with when my children started arriving, and I didn't know how to do children's cakes because I'd given up career outside of the home and then began sugar crafting by learning how to do it from the Sugar Craft Guild.
Right.
And that's what turned me to this profession, learning how to do my own babies' cakes.
The Sugar Craft Guild being?
The British Sugar Craft Guild.
Right, okay.
They're located in England, and they're like the governing body for this particular
Fair enough.
skill set, if you like.
So when you say sugar craft, I mean it's a very broad terminology. What all comprises in sugar crafting?
Sugar crafting is another term for cake decoration.
Okay.
And to decorate a cake, there are various types of sugars. There are liquid sugars, there's pulled boiled sugar, there's rolled sugar, and there's sugars made into, you can craft it into flowers, or you could model it into shapes. And so using sugar, there's dusted sugars, there are frostings. There are so many ways sugar can be converted to make it a decorative medium, an edible decorative medium for cakes.
Okay. But why do you think sugar crafting, well, now that you say that there are so many varieties of sugar that can be used, whether liquid or through doughs and fondant and things like that, why do you think it holds such an important value or place in the pastry world or the pastry department?
Firstly, as long as there's occasions to celebrate, there's need for a cake. So and as long as there are children's birthdays or landmark events in human history, anniversaries, weddings, birthdays, various, as long as those are around, cakes are going to be around. And with the creativity, like any other industry, creativity in this world has evolved. For example, royal icing. Known as royal icing because a chef, an Italian chef called Francatelli, royal iced the very first cake for Queen Victoria. You're going back into the 18th century. And so it's called royal icing for that reason. Now that would fall into the category of liquid sugar. So not everybody likes that taste. Or some cakes, royal icing dries candy hard, isn't necessarily easy to cut. So sugar doughs evolved, which are easier to cut, softer to eat, 2 and 3 days after the cake's been decorated. And fillings, as I said, as with every industry, this one has evolved as well. And so from fresh cream fillings to fresh fruit fillings to jams to frostings to liquid sugars to ganaches and chocolates or rolled sugar, all these are very viable mediums used in this.
So now that we've understood the different categories and how sugar craft has evolved from where it was to where it has come today, do you think that the level of creativity in the sugar craft world has dropped, or do you think it has only grown higher and further?
I think progress is a basic law of man. So it has progressed. Undoubtedly, when they passed the comment that old is gold, the chefs of yesterday took more time out for detail. Today it's become a little more commercialized. But it doesn't mean that sugar crafters of today don't have the skills. Maybe the commercial aspect of the market doesn't give you enough time to go through or put in, unless the occasion is very, very special, to put in as much detail, because the clientele today are maybe not willing to pay for that amount of work put in. And so you have to work according to what is commercially viable.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Do you think the ingredients that have been used, I don't know, back in the 1800s, like for example, we were talking about royal icing, up until today, do you think that that's played a huge role in change and adaptation? with terms of the kind of ingredients that are used? Because today everyone is using a lot of adulterated, artificial. How would you say?
Today the same ingredients are used. Going back to the 18th century when it was royal icing.
Right.
Royal icing requires a really fine sugar. Today we can go and buy packets of ready-bought fine sugar. Chef Francatelli of the 1840s ground his own sugar to make it as fine as he could, to get the finest royal icing possible so that it wouldn't block even the finest nozzle with sugar grit.
True. Yeah.
So the ingredients remain the same. How they've been achieved today makes it easier for chefs today to get a hold of these ingredients already pre-manufactured, industrially pre-manufactured.
Right.
So
speaking of ingredients, I think this is a very, very important topic to discuss. How bad are artificial food colorings in cakes and in frostings and fondant or any of that?
Artificial food colorings, artificial being the key word,
yes,
is not good for the human consumption.
Of course.
Because there are different kinds of food colors. You get the natural food colors. You're going to be surprised with what you can get them from. Natural food colors are the obvious. You get them from vegetables, flowers, fruits. But there are soil-based natural food colors.
Really?
There are rock-based natural food colors. And there are plant-based, insect-based natural food colors.
Can you give us an example of one of these natural food-based colors, whether vegetables or fruits or anything of that sort?
Okay, you want to take a vegetable? Beetroot.
Wow.
Beetroot gives you strong food color.
Yeah, of course.
The green, chlorophyll from anything green, gives you the stain green. And those are the primary colors actually. The red, blue and yellow, being our primary colors, cannot be obtained from any other than a natural source. And yet, mixing these two, you get all the secondary and tertiary ranges.
Okay.
But going back to your primary question of are food colors bad for us? If you're using the natural range of food colors, which are available today, organic food colors, they're not dangerous for you at all. But if you're using the artificial, another surprise, artificial food colors are petroleum based.
Yes.
So if you're using those have very adverse effects on people with, young people for example, elderly, anybody with a compromised immune system. Even a healthy person, it will compromise your immune system because these are dyes which do not augur well with, our liver doesn't metabolize them very well. Yeah, they're synthetic chemicals, they're artificial dyes. And they're pumped into every possible sweet and food, and these rainbow hues are pumped into foods we eat to offset the color lost by cooking or putting heat to it or freezing.
Right.
And the adverse effects it has on the population, especially in children, hypersensitivity, hyperactivity, ADHD, or allergies. Generally,
which are huge today.
Huge today. Allergies and eczemas in people.
Yeah.
And
we had a conversation with one of our other chefs, Chef Ashwini, on allergies and talking about gluten intolerance, dairy intolerance. And one of the primary reasons we were discussing came down to the fact that the way in which people use the produce today and the way it has been treated from growth to the table is what actually causes these allergies in children's bodies that have not developed immune systems. They do not have the ability to withhold any of those pesticides entering their system.
They are the manufacturers of these colors are putting them in children's gummy bears, in children's toothpaste, in children's vitamins. So it's kind of hard to get away from them unless you really read your product packet label.
Of course.
But there are certain countries that are more health conscious. For example, take the orange drink Fanta in the UK. Yes? Fanta in the UK gets its color from pumpkin and carrot.
Oh, really?
But Fanta in the US gets its color from red 40 and yellow 6. And yellow 6 is loaded with tartrazine. Take another very popular food, McDonald's. Okay? A strawberry sundae at McDonald's in London is flavored and colored with fresh strawberries. The same thing in the US is colored with the petroleum-based red 40. And these are tartrazine-based colors which create this hyperactivity and hypersensitivity.
It's fed to kids and it's fed to children whose immune systems aren't
manufacturers have to take a bigger responsibility to put out more quality goods. And that is why in our little department of cake decorating, I use a very good food color, which is tartrazine free, gluten free, GMO free, fat free, nut free, suitable for vegetarians, and last but not least, certified kosher by the Kedesiya, which is basically halal.
Okay.
So it is a food color all the same, it has certain E-additives in it, but it's diminished compared to using one that is not a natural
food color.
So
it's cut down halfway almost.
More than halfway.
Okay.
It has maybe just 5% trace elements of the not good stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we have to think about food colorings, for example, we see a lot of these competitions taking place. You know, these sugar crafters, they're making beautiful flowers and artwork made out of sugar and all of this. I mean, we see a diversity from where it used to be to where it has come today, and I think sometimes they use social issues as well to incorporate into these competitions. Do you think these competitions hold any value in the industry for the participants at a later stage?
Competitions do not what's the word I'm looking for? Competitions do not give a level to the participants. It's just like beauty pageants. It doesn't mean the winner is the most beautiful person in the world. That winner is just the best looking out of those participating.
Right.
Similar with competition. But yes, competitions do give whoever the competitors are, the entrants, give them more exposure.
Of course.
Enhance their confidence levels.
Definitely.
Because if they win something, then they feel yes, they have it in them to go ahead or to progress in this line. But it doesn't determine a person's skill levels at all. Somebody really skilled could not take part in a competition ever.
And you wouldn't know.
And you wouldn't know.
Very
So
true.
a competition doesn't really determine skill levels. When you participate in a competition, you get to know, one, others in this same field that you're in.
Right.
Two, products in the same field that you're in.
Right.
More market exposure as to what's out there for competitors, users like yourself. So competition brings a lot to the equation in terms of exposure.
A healthy atmosphere to know what's your market like.
You get to know others in the field you're in.
Fair enough.
You get, you learn from each other.
Yeah.
As we all do. No man's an island. We all gain our inspiration from somewhere.
Yes.
And so when things are brought to competitive level, you see work done by other artists and it inspires something else in you.
Fair enough.
And that's where creation builds.
Of course, yeah. They all say healthy competition is good competition.
Yeah.
So.
And although we mentioned the dangers of food colors or the different types of food colors out there, it's also another important factor. Imagine if all cakes were white.
Mundane.
There are certain cakes that have to be white.
Mundane and boring and
yes.
Yeah.
But if I said Halloween cake, what colors come to mind? Or if I said Valentine's cake, what or if I said baby boy or baby girl or silver anniversary. So colors play an important part in our lives, but don't let it go getting you blue because
or the red with the red velvet.
You just have to find the natural colors out there and utilize them. To bring the health and hygiene aspect into the equation.
Do you think they are economical for households to buy these organic colors and natural food colors?
Are you talking about costs?
Yeah.
I would rather put out a little more to buy a natural food color to avoid putting out even bigger in a hospital bill.
Agreed. The big picture.
Yep.
I agree.
Your health is your key.
Yeah.
So the cost is irrelevant
because
when you want
a later date it would obviously have adverse effects.
It has long-term effects.
Following up from the previous question that we discussed, the different categories of sugar crafting, we spoke about fondant, buttercream, and various other methods. So there are numerous ways to decorate a cake. Could you give us a little idea into that?
Well, you've mentioned a few.
Yes.
There's royal icing as well, and royal icing was initiated by an Italian chef called Francatelli, who did Queen Victoria's cake, and it was royal iced.
Right.
And there's where the term royal icing came about.
So it was for royalty.
Yes.
Wow.
But earlier than that, I think it was the 14th century, a baker was sitting in his little bakery and looking at a church, St. Bride's Church actually, which had a multi-tiered steeple.
St. Bride's in England, right?
In England, yeah. And it had a multi-tiered steeple, and that gave him the initial inspiration for a multi-tiered cake.
Oh, wow.
So for his daughter's wedding, the first multi-tiered cake was born.
So that was the first ever.
Yeah.
Approximately what time frame are we talking about?
You're going back to about the 14th, 15th century.
Wow.
And so it was St. Bride's church, and the first cake he made was for when his daughter was a bride.
Yeah.
And it was a multi-tiered cake. Up until then, I think the concept of cakes was just a single slab.
Right.
But to decorate, whether she's single slab or it's multi-tiered, presentations of cakes, decoration of cakes can be done with either liquid sugar, rolled sugar, pulled sugar, ganache, buttercream, royal icing, piped techniques. There are so many ways to bring her to completion. So
but there's no actual rule book which says if you're going to do fondant, you can't do this. If you're going to do buttercream, you can't do that, right?
Somebody who learns these skills, when they equip themselves with the whole gamut, then there's nothing to stop them decorating a royalized cake with rolled fondant techniques, or a rolled fondant cake with royalized piped, rush embroidered or piped techniques.
It's just how the techniques are executed together.
It's an interchange, and it should be. Any completed project, you bring everything to the equation. To bring your project to completion. And
well, I think this brings me to the question that I really want to ask, and I think we all want to know: is it all edible? Can you eat all of that sugar?
Well, tailor how much of sugar you eat, but yes, we aim to make most 95% of what we put on cakes. Some cakes are 100% all edible.
Wow.
Now, I'll give you an example.
Right.
A Christmas cake that I've made for our department.
Of course. Yeah.
Rolled sugar.
Yeah.
Completely fondant covered. But guess what? The ribbon, the foil wrap on the side
that's
is
inedible.
non-edible.
Yeah, I can see that.
Or if I put ordinary satin ribbon on the cake.
Okay, the board itself and the ribbon.
Another time a non-edible would be used on a cake is when you're doing sugar flowers, and the florist wire that you'd use
that holds the flowers together.
So you just advise.
What about the little balls on top of the cake? I mean, those are the little metallic.
They look like metal ball bearings, but they're not. They're sugar driggies.
Wow.
So they're sugar pearls, and they're completely edible.
That's beautiful.
So when a cake is done with something with a non-edible component, you just have to advise the person who's going to eat the cake.
Of course.
Kindly remove the ribbon, cut, enjoy.
Yes.
Or the florist wires are non-edible.
I'm sure there are a lot of people who would try to even eat that to make sure that it's
There are people who've asked why aren't the wires edible, and the allegory I would use is when you eat a lollipop, you don't eat the stick. So just remove them. You're welcome to eat the sugar flowers.
That's very true.
But there are certain components that necessary for the cake decorating world, but they're non-edible.
Well, I would like to say thank you for your time.
Very welcome.
And
Anytime.
your insight into the world of sugar. Even though it was a small insight, I think we gained a lot of perspective on it. And we at ICCA would like to wish all of you a happy holidays and a happy new year ahead. And stay tuned for our next episode on Chef's Talk. Bye.